Before we create more components, we can organize the ones we have right now. First of all, we have this hello world component that we don't use anywhere. So we can go ahead and delete it. Usually, components are part of other components or are responsible for small tasks. Though this is not the case for the page components. So, even though keeping all components within the components directory is totally fine, as soon as they are named properly, I prefer to have the page components in their own root directory. I have seen a lot of people calling this directory pages, views, or something similar. Whatever name you pick is fine as soon as you and your colleagues can spot it without a second thought. I prefer pages because it is easy to understand what it includes. So I will create the pages directory and I will move the page thread show, page home, and page not found within. Notice that we don't need to make any changes in our components. Do you know why? Because we used absolute paths in our import statements. If you wonder what is the @ symbol in the beginning of the path, it is an alias that resolves the src directory. This alias is defined within the Webpack configuration and it is set up for us when using the Vue CLI. So, no matter where we move the components, they will always look into the src directory to find the data file and the other components. If you use relative paths, like ./thread list, then here you will need to update the path to point to your new structure. One could argue that we don't need the page prefix in our page components as they now live in our pages directory and it's very easy to distinguish them. That is true. And also, we only use them inside the router file and not within the HTML directly. So we should be safe with HTML native element conflicts even if we used a single word to name them. Feel free to stick to using it if you like. There is nothing wrong either way. I will go ahead and remove the prefix. Notice that when I rename the components, I have the search for references option checked. This will update other files that import this component, so it won't require me to make any additional changes in the code. I will show you what this means in a minute. For me, it is important that I can quickly navigate to a component in my editor by remembering or guessing a part of its name. For example, if I want to open the page thread component, I want to be able to type page thread and find it. If I wanted to open the thread list component, then I would type comp thread and again find it and blindly hit enter to open it. As the name of the folder is called pages, my quick find method works both if we have the prefix in the component name or not. Let's take a look in the browser to make sure that our app still works fine. And it does, and that's great. Since we renamed the components, I would also like to rename the variable names in the router file. See here how the import statements have been updated. This was done by my editor when I did the rename with search for references checked. Renaming the local variables is a small detail, but I like to keep the code base tidy. So I will do that. I will rename this variable home. And here you can preview where this change will take place. This is because instead of just changing the word here, I'm using the refactor feature from Web Store. You can find the feature under the refactor option and then rename, but I usually use Shift F6 to do it quickly. Refactor, do refactor, and the same for page not found, Shift F6, refactor, and that's good to go. Before we go into the next lesson, let's also delete the Vue logo from our app Vue template. Now our app looks more pro in the browser and we also have a more organized folder structure.